together like I told you we needed to, right? Stay resilient together, and we fought together. How about Gage's big punt return on special teams? How about Corey, every single time you're out there pinning those guys doing your job? Great job. Offense wasn't perfect. How about that big play by Sam at the end? Huge play. Harold making a big play, and then another rookie making his first start. Nice job, Shedeur. Well done.
You just watched it with your own eyes. No narration needed, no spin, no analyst panel required. Just a head coach standing in front of his entire football team, running through his post-game thank you list with the energy of a man who just won the Super Bowl. And then, the moment he reaches his starting quarterback, the man who just made Cleveland Browns history, he pumps the brakes, delivers roughly 9 words, and keeps it moving like he had somewhere else to be. 9 words. For franchise history, I'm Dre Fiver. Welcome back to Dre Reports. And today, we are going all the way in on the Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders saga, because a new wave of revisionist history is spreading across the internet, and I am not going to let it breathe without a response. Here is why this is back in the conversation. A podcast recently made the argument, and listen, I'm going to let this thing speak for itself, that everything Kevin Stefanski did in his handling of Shedeur Sanders last season was not sabotage, but actually an act of mentorship. The argument goes like this. Stefanski allegedly met with Sanders every single morning, helped him study film and break down defenses, and was quietly preparing him for the exact kind of moment Shedeur is facing right now in 2026, where he is battling Deshaun Watson for the starting job all over again. The framing is that Stefanski already knew Dillon Gabriel would eventually come back and reclaim the starting position, so he gave Shedeur that window to start and collect NFL-grade film. As a favor, as a gift, as the act of a coach who secretly had the kids back the whole time. That is the narrative. That is what is circulating right now. And Dre's personal opinion? I would not believe that story if it came notarized with 3 witnesses and a judge's signature. Not one word of it. And by the time we are done today, you are going to understand exactly why this revisionist fairy tale collapses the moment you line it up against what we all actually watched happen in real time.
I don't really know if they had a choice. I don't know. Look, I don't know if it was Andrew Berry, if it was Jimmy and Dee Haslam. I don't know if it was Stefanski. But he showed sung a different tune today compared to what last night and what he's been singing all the way up until this. This is a different harmony here. I ain't never heard him sing like this before.
I mean,
this must be auto-tuned.
Hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do. And I think, honestly, I think that locker room, I think they would have riot. I think the fans would riot because enough is enough. I think that the fans are fed up. I think the people inside the organization are fed up. I think the players inside the locker room, this is what they want. So I think Stefanski kind of have his hands maybe tied behind his back, despite this might not be wanting the decision that he wants to make, but he has no choice but to make it at this point, especially with the way they're going. So I'm hoping for the best for Stefanski, that organization, and Shedeur.
Let's go back to the scene of the crime, November 23rd, 2025. The Cleveland Browns are in Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, and for the first legitimate time all season, Shedeur Sanders is getting a full week of first-team preparation and the official starting nod. Not an emergency cameo. A real start. The reason? Dillon Gabriel, Stefanski's guy from Jump, went down with a concussion in Week 11 against the Baltimore Ravens and could not go. So by circumstance, not by choice, let me be very clear about that. By circumstance, Shedeur Sanders finally got his shot. And what did the man do with it? He went into Las Vegas, a hostile road environment, with a group of receivers and an offensive line he had barely shared a huddle with all season, and he led the Cleveland Browns to a 2-4. 1-0 victory. He threw for 209 yards, found the end zone, and in the process became the first Cleveland Browns quarterback to win his debut start since 1995. 30 years of Browns football without a rookie quarterback winning their first start. And Shedeur Sanders broke that drought on the road, in the desert, in front of a crowd that was not his. That is not a footnote. That is a moment that should have had the entire organization doing cartwheels. Instead, Shedeur Sanders got 9 words and a shrug. When Stefanski gathered the team in that locker room after the final whistle, he was electric. He praised the special teams gunner by name. He praised the punter for pinning opponents deep. He celebrated the running back's big play at the end of the drive. He saved the most explosive energy in that entire room for Myles Garrett, a profanity-laced, passionate Hall of Fame energy tribute that included a game ball presentation and felt like a moment straight out of a championship locker room. And then there was Shedeur, another rookie making his first start. Nice job, Shedeur. Well done. Pivot. Back to the defense, like it never happened. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson watched that clip live on Nightcap that same Sunday night and immediately went to work. Sharpe could not believe it. His whole point was that this was a kid making his first NFL start, a kid the organization did not even want in the building, and that is all he gets? No game ball? No real acknowledgement. Johnson was even more direct. He told Sharpe flat out, that was not Stefanski's pick. Dillon Gabriel was his quarterback, the front office's quarterback, and that locker room speech told you everything you needed to know about where Shedeur actually stood in that building. And Dre? I thought they were both 100% right in that moment. And nothing that has happened since has changed my mind. Now here is where people want to pump the brakes and say, well, Myles Garrett had 3 sacks and broke his own franchise sack record that day, so of course he got the game ball. And to that I say, fine. Give Myles his flowers, he deserved every one of them. But there is a difference between giving Garrett the game ball and giving Shedeur 9 words for making franchise history. You can celebrate a generational defensive player and still find it in yourself to look your rookie quarterback in the eye and say something that actually means something. Stefanski had the entire locker room in the palm of his hand. He had momentum. He had energy. He chose to spend none of it on Shedeur Sanders. That was a choice. Choices reveal priorities. And this connects directly to the podcast argument making the rounds. This idea that Stefanski was secretly mentoring Shedeur, feeding him film every morning, building his NFL foundation for a future beyond Cleveland. Look, I am not going to sit here and tell you that Stefanski never spoke to Shedeur. I am not going to tell you they never broke down film together. Coaches meet with quarterbacks. That is literally the job description. But there is a monumental difference between running your standard morning quarterback meeting and genuinely advocating for a player, publicly, privately, and with your roster decisions. And on every single front that mattered in 2025, Stefanski's actions told a completely different story than the one this podcast is now trying to sell. The entire first half of last season, Shedeur Sanders was buried on the depth chart. No first-team reps. No real integration into the offensive rhythm. Stefanski made it clear in his press conference comments all season long that Shedeur was not his focus. Those were his actual words at one point. That Shedeur was not my focus. And people want to turn around now and say this man was quietly in Shedeur's corner, pouring into him behind closed doors? Come on. If you are genuinely developing a quarterback, you give him first-team reps, you give him situational work, you build his confidence in the building, you do not park him on the scout team, and then act surprised when the internet questions your motives. When Dillon Gabriel got hurt, and Shedeur's first emergency appearance came against Baltimore with almost no preparation, the performance was rough. 4 completions in 16 attempts, an interception, and yes, the hot takes rolled in immediately with people using that game as evidence that Shedeur simply cannot play at this level. But what nobody in that media environment wanted to confront was the context. You do not hand a 5th-round rookie emergency snaps against the Baltimore Ravens with scout team preparation and then use the result as a referendum on his career. That is not evaluation. That is exposure without investment. And Stefanski presided over exactly that setup. So the narrative that he was secretly building Shedeur up this whole time? That he was giving him starting reps against Las Vegas as some kind of calculated career gift? Dre's personal take, that argument is only possible because Stefanski is gone now. He's in Atlanta. He cannot be questioned. He cannot be held accountable in a Cleveland press conference. So the revisionism can spread freely because the man isn't here to be challenged on it. Convenient timing. Let's also talk about the money angle, because the source transcript brought it up and it is worth examining. The claim circulating is that Deshaun Watson was pulling in around $35 million, while Shedeur Sanders was on a rookie deal worth somewhere around $900,000. Whether the exact numbers shake out precisely like that or not, the broader point is accurate in its spirit. Watson represented an enormous financial commitment by the Cleveland Browns organization, and that commitment created institutional pressure that no head coach could fully escape. When you have a franchise that went all in on a quarterback to that degree, there is an organizational gravity pulling everything toward making that investment look justifiable. And a thriving Shedeur Sanders, a kid who fell to the 5th round, who cost virtually nothing, who the team did not even want, would have been an uncomfortable reflection of how badly the organization misread its own quarterback situation. Stefanski went 8-2-6 across his final 2 seasons in Cleveland. He was fired on January 5, 2026. And the moment he walked out of Cleveland, he was announced as the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons on January 17th. 5-year deal, fresh start, clean slate, new city. Stefanski got paid and got out of Dodge, exactly like the transcript says. And now, with the benefit of hindsight and geographic distance, the revisionist crowd wants to reframe his entire tenure in Cleveland as some kind of masterclass in quiet mentorship. The locker room speech we all watched, the press conference deflections, the buried depth chart, the scout team preparation, all of it. Suddenly it was a plan. Suddenly it was wisdom. Now, here is the part of this story that almost nobody is connecting properly. All of that history with Stefanski, the buried reps, the flat locker room praise, the refusal to commit publicly, the scout team treatment, all of it is now the backdrop for what is unfolding in Cleveland as we speak in May of 2026. Because the situation Shedeur Sanders is in right now is arguably more complicated than anything he faced last season. Deshaun Watson is back. He's healthy, or at least healthy enough to practice, and reports out of the Browns' first voluntary minicamp in late April 2026 indicate that Watson came in and took over. He was crisp. He was commanding. He got the overwhelming majority of first-team reps, and the beat reporters covering those practices came away saying Watson has the inside track to the starting job. Let that sink in. Deshaun Watson, a quarterback who has not played a meaningful snap since October of 2024, who missed an entire season recovering from a torn Achilles, whose last full season of action produced more questions than answers, is reportedly ahead of Shedeur Sanders for the starting job in Cleveland right now. And Shedeur, the same kid who went 3-4 as a rookie starter in the final 7 games of last season, who threw for 1,400 yards with 7 touchdowns as a 5th-round pick with almost no infrastructure around him, is sitting in second place in a competition that many in the fan base feel should not even be close. Todd Monken, the new head coach, came out and tried to pump the brakes on the Watson is QB1 narrative. He told Cleveland radio that he's not there yet, that it has only been 3 days of practice, and that the competition is genuinely open. He also mentioned that the plan actually called for Sanders to get more overall reps during those early sessions, even if Watson was leading certain drills during the media window. Monken even went out of his way to praise Shedeur publicly, calling out his elite playmaking ability as something that stands out on film. So credit where it's due. The new coaching staff is at least saying the right things out loud. But here is where Dre's spidey sense starts tingling, because we have seen this movie before in Cleveland. The language of open competition, and we'll see how it develops, is not new. We heard versions of that language throughout 2025 while Shedeur was getting scout team reps. The question is not what Todd Monken says in May. The question is what he does in July when the pads go on and the real evaluation begins. Because if the Browns go into 2026 starting Deshaun Watson over Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback coming off a torn Achilles who has not been effective since his Houston Texans days years ago, that is going to be one of the most scrutinized decisions in the NFL. The fan base will erupt. The national media will have a field day. And Shedeur Sanders will have gone from 5th-round disrespect to scout team burial to locker room afterthought to rookie starter to being leapfrogged by a returning veteran on a franchise that claims to be building toward the future. That storyline writes itself. And this is exactly why the Stefanski revisionism is so dangerous right now. Because if you let that narrative take root, if you allow people to rewrite what we all watched happen in Cleveland last season as some kind of orchestrated mentorship program, then it becomes easier to dismiss the pattern. It becomes easier to say, well, Watson getting first-team reps is just good coaching strategy. Watson has more experience. Watson fits the new scheme. Watson deserves the benefit of the doubt. And suddenly we are right back where we started. Shedeur Sanders, the kid with all the ability and all the pedigree and all the fight, watching someone else take his reps while people explain to him why it makes sense. And here is what I keep coming back to, and this is Dre's honest opinion, so mark it down. Shedeur Sanders has earned the right to be treated as the answer in Cleveland. Not a project. Not a backup in waiting. Not a chip in someone else's roster poker game. He went into hostile environments as a rookie and won football games. He made franchise history. He managed pressure that would have broken weaker minds. The draft slide, the media scrutiny, the depth chart disrespect, all of it. And he kept competing. That is not nothing. That is actually a lot. The kid showed you exactly who he is under fire. And Cleveland, right now in 2026, needs to decide whether they are going to build around that or whether they are going to keep putting obstacles between Shedeur Sanders and the career that he has already started proving he belongs in. The media environment in Cleveland is its own storyline too, and the transcript touched on something real there. There are reporters and content creators whose entire audience infrastructure is built on the Shedeur Sanders drama. The clicks, the engagement, the hot takes. As long as there is uncertainty around Shedeur's future, there is content to produce that does not make the coverage wrong necessarily, but it does mean that every report needs to be read with an understanding of the incentives behind it. When a report drops saying Watson has the inside track with only 3 days of spring practice in the books, ask yourself what that report is designed to do. Is it informing you, or is it agitating you? Because in the Cleveland media ecosystem, there is sometimes very little space between those two things. What I can tell you with confidence is this: Kevin Stefanski is gone, and so is whatever dynamic he created around Shedeur Sanders in that building. Todd Monken gets a fresh page. He gets to build his own relationship with his quarterback room from scratch, with no history, no baggage, no organizational debt to Deshaun Watson's previous regime. In theory, that is actually good for Shedeur, a coach who has no reason to be loyal to any previous decision, who is evaluating the room purely on what he sees. In theory. But theory and Cleveland Browns reality have not always been the same thing, and the early minicamp reports already have people nervous. Here is where we land today. The revisionist narrative that Kevin Stefanski was secretly Shedeur Sanders' greatest champion, that the flat locker room speech was strategy, that the buried reps were mentorship, that the 9 words after franchise history were some calculated career investment. That narrative gets a hard no from Dre Reports. We watched what happened. The camera does not lie. The energy does not lie. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson did not lie. And the pattern of how Stefanski handled Shedeur throughout 2025 does not suddenly transform into wisdom just because Stefanski is no longer in Cleveland to be held accountable for it. What Shedeur Sanders needs right now is not a revisionist defense of the man who underutilized him. What he needs is for Todd Monken to put the best football team on the field in Cleveland. And if Todd Monken watches that entire body of work, the fight, the resilience, the franchise history in Las Vegas, the wins against Pittsburgh, the way this kid has handled everything thrown at him, and decides Deshaun Watson is the answer in 2026, then we are going to have a whole lot more to talk about on this channel. Because that conversation, that one is just getting started. All right, Dre Reports, you know what time it is. If you made it to the end of this video, you are built different, and I appreciate you riding with me. Now, I need you to do 3 things before you leave this page. First, smash that like button right now. Not in a minute. Right now.
Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
This kind of no-filter, no-spin breakdown takes work, and your support is what keeps Dre Reports coming with the heat. Second, drop your take in the comments. Do you believe Kevin Stefanski was secretly mentoring Shedeur the whole time? Or do you think that narrative is the most convenient rewrite in recent NFL history? Let me know where you stand. And third, if you are not already subscribed to Dre Reports, hit that subscribe button and turn the bell notification on so you never miss a drop. Because the 2026 Cleveland Browns quarterback battle is just getting started. And trust me, we are going to be here for every single moment of it. Dre Fiverr out. Peace.